Konnichiwa, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anna Piperal, and I come from Estonia. So it's my great pleasure to be here today. I'm really happy because today my big dream has accomplished. I'm in Japan. I really am thankful for that. So as an e-believer and digital native, or no matter how you call me, I come from a small country which population is similar to maybe 1/5 part of Tokyo. But we have managed to implement the technologies that are supporting us as a digital country throughout the whole nation. And we believe that our experience as pioneers in this area can be beneficial and inspire other countries. So in the Estonia showroom in Enterprise Estonia, where I work, our mission is to encourage countries' development. We're hosting international delegations. Japanese Minister of Economy, Mr. Akira Amari, was also present there, and numerous Japanese delegations. And today I'm here to open a bit for you the topic of e-governance, digital services, ICT innovation that happened in my country. So I hope you will enjoy the story. So we call it an epic story about Estonia because of how people react usually to that. So I hope for you it will be fascinating. But what fascinates me, that Estonia historically is a country that was occupied by many nations, the Germans, the Swedes, Russians. So we're a multicultural country. And when we regained our independence in the 90s, for us, it was the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity. We didn't have any legal framework, but we had great technology and engineers from Soviet times that we inherited. And having this independence and lack of financial and human resources, as you can see from the numbers, we just had to build a different system. We couldn't have physical service places. We couldn't bring service to people who lived in the countryside. So digital services, for us, it was not a revolutionary approach. It was a natural evolution because we didn't have any other options. So we had to make this plan A work. And voila, today, Estonia is recognized by international organizations. We are part of Digital 5 for such a catching up small capitalism, so young capitalism. Digital 5 is a number of countries which are known as the most developed in e-governance, and we are together with Israel and South Korea there. So it's a great acknowledgement. And when we look at the international rankings, not only tax competitiveness and climate overall is considered the top, also European Union places us #1 in digital economy and society index, and as well e-governments and other indexes of ease of doing business, economic freedom, internet freedom are very high ranks. But it's not actually about the ranks, as methodologies can be different. So next I will show you what we actually think and consider when we speak about digital society. So the e-state for us is not just having computers and internet that most of the people have. It's about a redefined governance, a different logic behind building the system, a different logic in holding data, collecting data, and exchanging data in order to simplify our life, business, and government services. And as a side effect, what we get is a transparency and accountability, so we can have more trust into the government. In the beginning, government was also trying to gain the trust. So it is not a process that happens over 1 year, but it is gradually growing. When the government is developing something new, it really works, the trust is higher, and then they can do something else. So Japan is definitely a country with a lot of legacy, a lot of history, a lot of tradition, but still the developments and the ICT knowledge of people, their skills, internet penetration, and your readiness to use technology overall is much higher than it was in Estonia back in the 90s. So I truly believe this is possible in Japan. So what does it mean? The e-state concept stands behind empowerment and empowerment a nation to do everything online, you will probably laugh, but there are only 3 things that we cannot do with a computer in Estonia. That's to get married, to get divorced, and sell your property. So we sometimes joke it's all connected with alcohol. Of course, it's not actually true, but still, some decisions need a bit more of a thought. And when we look at the main core principles that we have for building our infosystems, digital society, one's only principle, in my view, is one of the most crucial. It means that there is only one institution, the government body, that will be collecting the data, and no other institutions will be asking from the citizens for the same data. The government bodies should, the local municipality as well, should exchange the data and trust each other in this data exchange. It means that as a citizen, I don't have to go to different offices, bring different papers, and we are killing the bureaucracy with this measure, in fact. Or no legacy. Many countries in Europe and over the world today, not only Europe, are struggling with having a lot of different technologies. They're paying tremendous amounts for the technologies that do not service them well today, but they've done so great investments already. So no legacy is our principle, so we can exchange our technologies every 13 years, so we are back on track, because most likely in 13 years what we are using today is already too old. Or digital by default. This principle means that first we think how to build a digital service, how to make a service automatic, and then offer physical support. So having digital society doesn't mean we don't have a service places for elderly, for those who prefer to come to a physical place and have a chat, but it means that there is no queues there. When the elderly people go to the state office, the service lady will be using the same computer and the same information system, and she can provide a better service. And there will be no line, as all those who want to do things digitally have an availability to do it. And user-friendliness. You don't have to be an IT genius to use digital solutions and services. If they're beautifully designed, even a kid or your grandmother can actually use them. Some services don't even need any IT skills at all, like a digital prescription that we have, you're using everywhere. It means that you can call a doctor, and in just a few minutes of time, you can visit any pharmacy in the whole country. You'll present your ID card, and you will get your medication with no paper. So this is a practical result of installing different technologies. And of course, digital identification, which in Japan, as maybe sometimes inspired also by Estonian example, considering the number of Japanese delegations, my number system and the ID card was introduced in Japan as well. And of course, I want to speak about the different channels for service provision and open standards, as these are also crucial. But if I bring you some practical examples from the ease of how we run business, how we use the services. In Estonia, to establish a company and become a fully functional juridical body, it will take you 18 minutes of time. So this is no drawbacks in the security. You will be checked, your background will be checked, your connections with company will be checked, and you will have a fully functional company that you can operate. Or, for example, financial sector. My last time to the bank was 4 years ago. It doesn't mean I don't use their banking services. I do. And recently speaking to one of your Japanese colleagues, they said they don't care about the bank. Well, I actually don't go to the bank, but I love my bank, which is funny because they offer me the services online. I pay all my bills online, or they're automatically deducted. I make investments online. I bought my home and signed a home loan agreement online. So I don't actually have to be there, and they can match the expectations. So in Estonia, most of the transactions are happening electronically, so there is no necessity to come to the bank in person. And this was also done because the banks couldn't afford having a physical service spots and bank branches, and they started to use state-issued ID card and promote that for personal identification. Because when you know who's in front of the computer, you can open private data and you can open private services for people. And financial industry has benefited, I think, the most from this integration. Or voting online. For today, in Estonia, there's a unique case when from 2005 we have been voting online and using a software, our ID card or a mobile ID, and we can cast our vote from anywhere in the whole world. During the 1 week, we can actually change our mind and only the last vote will be counted in. So there's no point to buy my vote or somehow influence me. You can notice that statistics for iVoting is not as high. This is a parliamentary election result because for many people, voting is not too often, and this is a tradition for us, so they prefer to go. But for all these business people, those who travel around, those whose opinion is important, this is a great opportunity to vote from Cayman Islands or from Seychelles or from anywhere. And overall, from state services, everything that you can think of, from putting a name to your baby, apply for increasing your pension, or get some notarized documents, submit a construction permit, you can do all of that using a state portal and online services. We spoke about e-prescriptions. This is a really great solution from 2010 that everybody are using, and this has reduced queues as well in the hospital. So let's speak about the efficiency. Our experience actually proves that using digital services, digital identification is really beneficial for the whole economy, and it saves us a great ton of money. 2% of GDP is the number that we save just thanks to the digital signature. So you also have an ID card and there is a digital signature capabilities with it. So imagine we sign working contracts, holiday applications, or whatever actually comes into your mind, voting ballots, banking transactions. We'll sign everything digitally with our computer, and government is accepting that. The business people are accepting that, and that's saving a lot of time. Or our police, which is 50 times more efficient because they don't have to stop a car to check it. The car of police will be just driving behind you. They will automatically read your car plate number, and on their inboard screen with internet, as they're always online, they will see data from vehicle registry and also, let's say, information about your insurance, your driving behavior, and your good and bad behavior map will be showcased. So whenever you were checked, whenever you were stopped, nothing will be a secret for them, but of course not your medical information or any other private data that is not related to their job. And this is how police can check many more cars during the day, and it empowers a safe environment. Or iVoting, which is just practically cheaper. You don't have to have offices everywhere. In the embassies, Estonia can't afford having embassies everywhere, so it's a great saver for us as well. And the prescribed medication. So there is, imagine, 30% less queues in the hospitals as we don't have to come to renew our medicine, renew the paper, and come once again. So those who need help, they can come in a much simpler way. Another parameter is the economy. So when we look at our state budget, and Estonia came out of the financial crisis also partly because we had little government expenditure and of course governmental debt, we are spending around 50 million euros per year for the maintenance of the whole structure, of all the IT guys that work for the government, all the license agreements, all the computers, just to have it in the same way like now, not building anything new. And when we compare that expenditure to the UK, for example, there's 400 times difference with it. So we're in partnership with Finland and UK in building digital services and cross-border services, so we have estimated their expenditures. So when you have a distributed infrastructure and a strong identity, you can actually save a lot of money. This is a birch tree. That's a typical tree for Estonia. And in spring, everybody has a social right to go and get some of this valuable vitamin-rich juice. And this is the same logic when we think about the internet. It's our social right, not a constitutional right yet. So I think the term being stressed about limited internet connectivity will come from Estonia originally. I'm already feeling that a little bit when in my hotel the internet is not really too fast. I believe with your access and 3G, 4G, 5G, everything, it's a bit better. But when we think and speak of technologies, we also have, of course, 3G, 4G everywhere. We're working on a 5G pilot, which will be launched in 2018. We have Wi-Fi areas in all the service places, government offices, schools, gas stations, basically numerous amount of the service places. And 100 megabit per second is now available in all the high-density regions. We're trying to build this last mile in the smallest villages as well. So we can consider ourselves really tech-savvy. And now when we're coming down to the main crucial elements, the e-identity, our cornerstone for strong identification of all the people, that is the base for any public service, for exchanging private data. The ID card that we have, you can see it on the picture, has a chip. Actually, we are buying computers from Japan and they have a built-in reader specifically for our market. That's interesting. So we can just plug our ID card in. So the e-identity is really well penetrated. We have an ID card today compulsory. In the beginning it wasn't. It was launched in 2001, and since then it took around 7 years, I'd say, to get to over 50% of distribution. And today 94% of people can be identified at the strongest level of security. The ID card was never hacked. It is using strong encryption of 2046-bit key, and we use certification center and 2 PIN codes together with the ID card for electronic use. And as well, I have my mobile phone, which is the next step of a strong identity. And I must tell you, I don't use ID card that much today because I have that one. The mobile ID is a SIM card that is issued by the telecoms on behalf of the state. It has certificates inside, and I use 2 PIN codes with that. So this is my reader, my strong identity. I can access to my online banking app. I can access to state services. I can digitally sign anything just having my mobile phone. It doesn't matter if it's iPhone. It can be the oldest phone ever, just which has the coverage. And in the beginning, we were scratching our car windows with an ID card when it was snowy, but then there were different services and incentives came in to promote that. So the ID card today is not only a tool for identification, and it's compulsory, and also for traveling. Unfortunately, not to Japan. I had to bring my passport. But passport is not a compulsory element in Estonia. Within European Union and Schengen zone, we can travel with an ID card. It's used for all the state services, healthcare services. It's used for giving digital signature, iVoting, banking. I'm logging into my telco, to my energy company. Whatever private company who wants to offer me services, they also will be using the ID card or the mobile ID for identification. It works instead of a driving license, so I don't have to carry one. But if I'm in Japan, I will have to bring my driving license. So I wish we could lose that soon. Or the public transportation card. This was the first incentive that people were offered electronic public transport ticket with a cheaper price if they were using the ID card. So the controllers were coming in and you present your ID card and they can check with it, have you paid or not? So this motivated over 30% of people to get the ID card in the first place. And today, as a loyalty card, the ID card becomes more and more popular as shops understand no one wants their plastic cards. You have so many plastic discount cards that it's killing your pockets, and you can't carry them, and you get angry that you don't get your discount. So for Estonia, many institutions just started to use the same state ID to identify who you are, and then they see in their database of loyal customers what's the discount for you, and people are much more happy. So to emphasize, the ID card is the key to any personal data for any privacy issue. In Estonia, everybody are using the ID card, from doctors, police guys, whatever public officer, whatever citizen, whatever business person. Before getting access to private data and services, they will be using strong identification. That's how we know who's in front of the computer, and we can regulate and control that further. And after we have done the identification, we can go on to the data exchange. And the X-Road is our famous solution for offering exchange of data and interconnecting distributed databases and registries. In most countries, there are the super databases. Everybody are trying to collect maximum information, and then they're struggling with how to secure that data, how we will not lose the data, how do we regulate access to that. So we have it distributed. If someone hacks into our system, they can get the data from the bank, or they can get the data from population registry, well, in the very worst case, but they will never get the whole picture. And at the same time, institutions keep a power of having whatever platform they use, whatever technology they choose, but when they're attached to the X-Road, which is this internet layer, like a road for data exchange, they will be obeyed the same rules, and this is how we can interconnect local municipalities, governmental databases, and actually private sector databases if we want to offer services. As an example, you can see the tax board. So when I log into my online tax board, I give them permission to pull the data together. They see what my boss declared. They contact the bank to verify that the taxes were actually paid for me. And I have a pre-filled, totally validated information that I don't have to fill in. There is no mistakes, and this is how 94% of people are declaring their taxes in the first 2 weeks. So you can interconnect and exchange data with the private sector if the customer, as a citizen, entitles you. In the same way, if I log into the bank and I want to apply for a loan, they will contact the population registry to make assurance of whether my documents are still valid and my personality is the same. So this X-Road, we have actually extended it. We have been given it as a free gift to European countries. We have exported that to many countries. And today Finland has implemented the X-Road, so we will build the first cross-border services. So it means with my ID card, I could go to Finland soon and get my prescribed medication. Or if I want to work there, I don't have to present any tax papers or bring it to one country or another, because the tax authorities will be able to exchange the data. So this is our secret, but actually it's open source, so you can actually use it. But people, when they get something for free, they are not very likely to start using that, so we can sell it too. And of course, none of the technologies are ever perfect. You can kill with a knife. Just think of the technological revolution in the car industry. When the car was invented, there were no roads, there were no rules. People couldn't afford cars, but no one is questioning today that actually we are much more efficient. We are not getting rid of it. So technological revolution with internet and technology, this is what's happening today. So we must think, how do we use that? And the cyber threats for us, of course, is #1 problem for Estonia. Not a problem, but something that we think of much more than any other country. We have a data in the governmental cloud. Most of the data is electronical, so in many cases there is no physical backup. So this is about finding this right balance of closing data, protecting data, at the same time opening that when we think of all this big data analysis and other capabilities and opportunities of today's world. So now don't look on that slide, look on that slide. Usually the governments or the companies do not realize that they have been hacked. And it takes quite a lot of time. And so for those who are looking at that slide and didn't check on that, which is really highly unlikely, for me it was staggering to know that it takes actually middle time, 205 days, to get to know that you were hacked. Can you imagine what can be done in the system in 205 days? So when we speak about the security as the cyber conference, so the traditional approach to the security would be building a fence around the data. And this is all firewalls, Kaspersky viruses, and all these. Didn't want to insult any of them. They're also important. But when we speak of the data, previously we would build a fence around it. But when you use the cloud, is there actually the perimeter that you can block? Can you build the fence when the data is moving or when it's in the cloud somewhere? So we thought that in traditional approach, you can never be sure with 100% that it really works, the fence works. And there is no transparency that you can give to the public or to the government institutions or to the audit. And in the cloud, there is no perimeter. And what is the most crucial, it's not the outside attacker who is in many cases violating your system. It's the insider, the person who is inside your system who knows that. This is how Edward Snowden was able for many months do something. This would never been possible in Estonia. So when we think of security model, there is 3 core elements. First of all is confidentiality. So we use ID card and mobile ID, and this is how we ensure the confidentiality when accessing the data. So we know who is in front of the computer. We can regulate. As a politician, a person will have the same ID card as a business person. So you will have different roles, but one identity, one ID card and 2 PIN codes. So confidentiality is usually what people understand, but I guess in security world, there are many other issues that you also understand, like availability. The data is secure, but we must make it available to those who need to work with it. And our X-Road solution is perfect for that. And the third really important component that we didn't know was important till 2007 when we experienced the first cyber riot, it's the integrity. Imagine if someone sees my medical record, well, it's a confidentiality breach and they can popularize that, and that's one kind of a problem. But if someone manipulates my medical health record in a way that neither I nor the doctor knows, and the doctor will kill me, treating me, thinking that everything is right, this is an integrity issue. And the more data you have in the cloud, the more data you have at rest, like succession documents, and even the software components, the rules of data exchange, everything, you must make sure that there is integrity. And for that, we're using the blockchain technology. So first of all, we make sure the data is confidentially accessed. Then we are using the availability solutions to make sure the data is only accessed by authorized parties in a secure manner. And we are maintaining the integrity of the whole system. The data, the log files, the software components, the rules, so everything, having this data-centric approach to protection. So blockchain is kind of a cool world today. And we didn't know we had a blockchain before the Bitcoin came, and so we understood that actually this is it. But it's different from the Bitcoin because our blockchain technology is scalable. It is scalable that big that it can sign the whole data in the whole world, not storing it, and it won't need any additional capacity. A keyless signature infrastructure is the blockchain that we use. So basically, we're assigning whatever data we have with hash, with a keyless signature, pure mathematics, and we're creating a root hash value, which is representing like a fingerprint, representing the whole data, like a DNA for all the data. So you can't reproduce it, but you can actually tell that this is correct. And then we're tying that to the calendar every second. So we're signing the data every second, and every second we're able to calculate back and see if the integrity is the same. So by doing this, we're publicizing the root values with time. We're even publicizing that in Financial Times every month as a code so everybody could calculate. We're creating this public awareness of the information that is signed, not information in the privacy mode, but the special hash values, how we can validate the data. And so we can make sure the signing time, the identity of the signer, and the integrity of the pieces of data. So basically, what does it mean? It means we can't prevent the cyber incidents, but we can detect them in the moment that they're happening, not after 205 days. And we can detect where the data was misplaced, where it was changed exactly, so we have an overview about what is happening in our systems. So we're assigning everything with that, from succession documents to log files, software components, data trusts, healthcare documents, everything. And that's why there's a log file that all the people can see how the government is using my data. Not only see and use the services and see the data that the government has collected or the hospital has collected, depending on the type, but to actually being able to see how they have been using that. Of course, our evolution or revolution, whatever you call it, didn't happen at once. And we started with the e-tax board already in 2000 and the mobile parking. In 2001, we built the first population registry. And I have to mention here, we are using this number, which I know that Japan is historically not very welcoming, but you already have phone numbers, credit card numbers, and all the other numbers. So would you be ready to exchange a bit of a privacy? Because I can tell you my private personal identity number. I know you can't do nothing with it. You can share me documents for digital signature. You can know my birthday. You can buy me opera tickets with a mobile or public transport tickets, but you cannot misuse it. And this is how no one will be able to misuse it to prove that he is me. So we have it public differently from my number system. And that's why we could build the population registry and we actually know who are the people there. If I change my name, if I change even my sex, then if I was a criminal, I will remain a criminal. So it doesn't help. But of course, if you're a good guy, it means you get a lot of services, you get a lot of benefits. You don't have to go to different governmental agencies. You will get a lot of saving, but unfortunately, you will feel it only when you have the service. So you have to have a little bit of trust in the beginning. So in Estonia, in 2002, we have installed the ID card and started to promote that. And together with digital signature capabilities, we also have an A-School, which is a tool for parents, kids, and teachers where, well, Estonian kids cannot hide their diaries or burn them. It doesn't help. The parent have a direct access to the results. So either Estonian kids have to study good or become the IT hackers. ID bus tickets, so this was promoting among the normal people, not business people, the use of the ID card. So you got a discount and you got an ID card so you could comfortably use it. Then the e-land registry came, I-voting from 2005. There was just less than 1% of crazy people who tested it out in the beginning, but it was all legal. We have had 9 elections so far, so we still continue. And in 2007, we have experienced our first cyber riot, and this is when we understood that the X road is not enough for integrity purposes. It's great for signing, for public infrastructure, but not for integrity. So I think this was one of the great acknowledgements for us. We were really public and went public about our cyber incident. We didn't lose the data. There were DDoS attacks happening to our computers, and we just cut Estonia because we didn't know what else to do. We cut the internet connection of Estonia. So inside the country, everything worked. Outside the country, it didn't work. And we understood there is no regulation now, there is no integrity software, or no overview, and we started to act in that direction. And in 2008, we started with a more sophisticated data, more sensitive data. So medical information must be digitalized by hospitals and pushed to the central system. So as a patient, I can access my medical health records from anywhere. I can ask my friend doctor for another opinion for the research I've already performed, or show anyone the history. Of course, I can block my medical record fully or partly and have a full overview of what doctors when and looked at what type of information. So in Estonia, a doctor, for misusing a patient's data, can lose his license. So you can imagine, in a transparency like this, they wouldn't want to risk their life job. And then e-prescription came, and this was really skyrocketing. In 1 year, over 90% of prescriptions were issued electronically. People understood the value. They were more ready. Smart grid is about smart energy, sustainable energy resources. I wouldn't say we're good at this yet. We are just acknowledging that. And when it comes to electric vehicles, we've built the network, but we're actually waiting on Toyota. It's one of the most popular brands here. We want the electric car to work in -25 with no flows, because there's a lot of snow in wintertime. And 2013, when Estonian Prime Minister went to European Union to become the digital commissioner for single market, he brought the X-Road to the table as a free gift. And so luckily, Finland has installed that, and we hope that with cross-border collaboration between two democracies, we can actually expand this further. And our two latest developments, I would say they're really big projects. First is because of the security, and the second because of the market. So Estonia is a small economy, and we are very export-oriented, as our market is really slow. So whatever solutions we're creating, we want to export them. We want to make them global. And the e-residency is our market expansion tool. So the e-residency is actually a way how you can get a strong identification from the government's location independently. So e-residency card is similar to the ID card that we use, but it's not used in physical world. So I just put in some numbers inside. So today there was over 13,700. Every time I show the slide, the number is jumping up, so it might be wrong already. And over 950 companies were established. So we're giving a tool for international business people to operate their business from anywhere. They can apply for the e-residency online. In Japan, you can get a card in the Embassy of Estonia in Tokyo. And having this tool, you're able to open a company electronically in just 18 minutes. You're able to open a bank account. We've changed this regulation, and our banks is trying to catch up with this, offering solutions. It will be possible from next year to even open a bank account online in Estonia. So you can imagine countries soon, this is a shift in the paradigm, the countries will be competing for the businesses, and this is our competitive advantage. So e-residency, first of all, provides strong identification, whether you're using Estonian services as a company, so governmental infrastructure for business, or you want to integrate and use e-residency like NASDAQ or BitNation or other companies who are providing that as an identification of the customers. For countries where there is no state-issued identity, it's a great way how to start using that. And for all the people who want to operate anywhere, freelancers, small companies, what they look for is simple administration, easy reporting, online. So with e-residency, there is no need for people to come to Estonia to operate a business which is officially, juridically located in Europe. So it can be an Asian country or non-stable, like, well, politically pretty hard, like Ukraine. So statistically, in the e-residency, number one popularity gained Finland because of the many practical needs, many business people. Americans are number two, and there is Russia number three. So in Japan, how many did we have? Around 300? Around 300 Japanese people have the e-residency card today. So I encourage you to take a closer look at that. And the data embassy. So this is for security. You can imagine we're having data in the governmental cloud, but actually the servers are within the country. So what happens if someone decides to bomb our territory, to invade us or anything? That would be a disaster. Of course, similar like to a tsunami, or actually worse, as we're so small. So the data embassy, this is our response to the problem of data security that is stored within the country. We are bringing the data backups out of the country to Estonian embassies around the world. And of course, we'll be using the integrity solutions like blockchain to make sure this data is safe. So in this case, if territorially something should happen to us, we can continue as a government, as a culture. We will not lose our data and our heritage. So as you can see, Estonian government, being export-oriented, is trying to do everything not to over-regulate the companies and the business, but create these conditions for growth, for innovation, simplifying administrational processes. Because I doubt any of you here enjoys submitting tax declarations or going to the banks or having different services. Neither Estonians do. And so when I have to say a few words about how our future will look like, there is no doubt that there's going to be technology in the future. We have understood that because of this techno-economic paradigm. The governments have to take a leading role in introducing new rules, because many countries, they just cannot control companies like Uber or Airbnb nowadays. And Estonia was the first country to make a contract with Uber that every time an Uber gets paid in Estonia, the amount of taxes will be directly transferred to the tax authority. So they don't have to report, but they still get taxed. So I think this is a precedent in the world. And this is why the governments have to change. They have to change the regulations and the common understanding of how it works. So speaking of the projects that we're working on, of course, cross-border data exchange for us is crucial. If I need my medicine today, in Japan, I would be like really troubled. I would have to go to the hospital, I would have to visit the doctor, I will have to confirm if there's any diagnosis, and then get a paper, and then get to the pharmacy. And in some cases, people won't be able to even live that long. So that's really crucial. Interesting is also real-time economy, the concept that our government is working on. It comes together with a zero administration. So imagine if a company, SME, is using online banking, then they can allow that the tax authorities will access that as an annual report, so they don't have to report at all. For micro companies already, there is a minimum reporting necessity from the government side, but imagine that this can just happen. And real-time economy means that whatever I'm making a payment, the fee for the service provider will go directly to the service provider, and the tax will just go to the tax authority. In this case, you don't have to report, as it's happening simultaneously, and the money flow will be much more efficient. So we're really waiting forward for that, and Estonia is the best place where this can be tested out. And of course, our e-residency. Our government CEO promises over 10 million e-residents by 2025. This is like in Estonia, we have 1.3 million and we have 10 millions. Considering the value that you get, and I've already spoken to some Japanese entrepreneurs who have the e-residency, they point out the costs and the comfort and many other issues. They can still live in Japan, not go anywhere, operate a business here, avoid double taxation and so on. But this will be our next Airbnb, a country with the most residents that actually do not live in the country. So I encourage all the countries to develop their infrastructure for businesses, because otherwise they will come and make business through Estonia. I hope. And pretty interesting concept for me. I'm studying, finishing Masters in Technology Governance in our School of Innovation, Italian Technical University. And invisible governance, imagine we all need air, right? But we don't feel it. We don't feel the air when it's there and we have enough. But when the air is not there, you can actually feel it. So if we bring a parallel to the services, you often feel that the service doesn't work, and this is when you think about it. So in an ideal case, the services should just work. They should just be operative all the time. You shouldn't notice your government. It should be invisible. It should just happen. If you need a driving license or exchange that, so today in Estonia you can apply, and in 2 minutes, basically you would get a new driving license that will be sent to your home. But why doesn't the government just send you the new driving license when they have all the data about you, they know you're healthy, and you have the data? I could entitle my government to just even bill me for that if they will be taking care of me like this in a proactive way. Or imagine Estonian lady when she has a baby. She will have to once go to population registry to register her child, and then online she can set a name to her baby, apply for all the parental benefits, put a kid in the kindergarten, get a babysitting service in local municipality or anywhere. But why do we even need that? If the hospital knows that there's a child and they're issuing the personal ID code, why don't they send this information to tax and to social security services so they could just calculate the mother's salary and there is no need for application and it will just happen for a woman who is at home? So this would be the invisible governance style, when you don't have to fill the service, you don't have to do anything. You try to automatize, maybe use artificial intelligence and be a proactive servant, not a one administration burden. And in this way, this whole concept of governance itself will be changed. We would not need people who type and scan, but we would need people to think, because brain is our main value, what differs us from anywhere or anything or computer. So to finalize this presentation, I want to say that I'm truly an e-believer. And when thinking about Japan and Japanese development, Japan is a country of traditions. This is what I understood. And what is funny, that maybe you don't realize, technology is in your tradition, or you can bring it more to your tradition. So this change is going to happen, and the sooner the governments and the companies all together and the people empowering government to do these changes will do it, the better a country can gain economic growth and sustainability. And it's not only because Estonia, it's not about Estonia overall, it's about the global economy, a global competitiveness are developing as like the whole big nations. There will not be no nation states. We will be a very global economy soon, in just maybe a few tens of years. So let's try to boost innovation and creativity. Let's try to simplify administration for people if there are real tools already done for that. And let's just be sometimes pioneers, because going to the space was a really, really scary thing, but we still had to do it because we're people and humans. So thank you.